Thank you for having me again and giving me the floor. My understanding of the BRI, the Belt and Road Initiative, is just as any scholar could have an interest in a subject area. One of the key things which made me study the Belt and the Belt and Road Initiative was simply because I wrote about Africa and the development of Africa. And when in my book, which is titled Carcass for White Monopoly Capital, I talk very much about how Africa has been dealt a cruel blow in development by the interaction with the Europeans. And once I heard China, I remember attending some seminars organized by a German institute known as Stiftung. It was in Windhoek. It was the first of its kind in Africa. And when the Chinese indicated that they wanted to come and do business that time in Africa, I would put that in around 2005. Is it? Yeah, 2005, 2006. It was just preliminary that time. And when I attended that seminar, all the people around me were Europeans. They were Germans. Namibia is a country of Germans, right? And there is the Afrikaner, of course, the Afrikaner, South Africa, the whites of South Africa who are there. So when I was sitting there, that time I used to do some journalistic work for one magazine which focused on socioeconomic matters. I was sent there just to see what they have. And in this seminar, they talked at length about how China's intention in Africa is to come and not do business as it were, but just to come and make sure that they destroy Africa, right? That was the theme. That was the theme at that time. But being a student of history and knowing that the interaction between Africa and Europe, which brought brought about imperialism, brought colonialism in the picture, brought neocolonialism. I knew that Africa has always had a raw deal. By that time, I'd already visited Europe and already visited Asia. I've also had a sojourn in United States. So I knew exactly what we were missing in Africa. And when I looked at the way business was being done, the loans were being given by banks which are white-dominated banks, I realized that we don't stand a chance in Africa to be able to make it as Africans. The structure is made in such a way that, we just look up to the Europeans, but we will never be able to get anything outside of getting a job, getting a car loan, getting a mortgage loan or a boat. And then from there, we labor and slave for the rest of our lives until we retire at 60 or 65. So I wanted something which I was interested. My interest was, my interest was so much heightened because here was China and Chinese had come. They were, offsetting the apple cart, if you will. So I participated in the debate. That's why my interest in China, came into being. I was born somebody who would embrace the Chinese investment and see how far they can actually challenge the unipolarity of the European investment in Africa, of which these investments in Africa are tied with so many other, demands, requirements, such that they end up bogging down any development agenda in Africa. If you a customer, but that's beside the point. When I took off and I understood that China is coming to invest in Africa, and then later on in 2013 they brought this Belt and Road Initiative. I was like, this is the real revolutionary investment, which was going to be a new global growth engine. There was no other way I could have called it, because that's exactly what it was. It was a new imperative into Africa, which is going to bring more development. And we had an opportunity which still exists, whereby we could be looking at China and look at our experiences with the Europeans and say, look, if you are going to engage us, we are going to bring our demands on the table. And well knowing that we have had a very bad experience between Europe and Africa, we have an opportunity to change that kind of agreement between ourselves and the Chinese such that it becomes almost a win-win situation. And this is what Patricia mentioned in the beginning before, she got a problem with the connection. She was saying she went to Makerere University where she did a undergrad, and she found out that there was nothing which was prepared in terms of writing for this new opportunity, which is being brought by the Belt and Road Initiative. And I can totally agree with that, because this is not only a foreign direct investment into Africa. No, not at all. This is more than that. It dwarfs anything which Africa has ever come across since we started our interaction with the Europeans maybe 500, 600 years ago. Now, when you look at the investment which is being mooted by the BRI, if you look at the investment, well, some people are saying, well, this is a smoke screen, this kind of illusionary, promises and so on. But I don't believe that, because the way the Chinese have crafted their development agenda over the years, and this, Patricia will agree with me, or anybody who knows a little bit of Chinese history will agree with me. China is got a history of more than 5,000 years of civilization, which is uninterrupted civilization. And they know very well that when they plan, they have a centralized planning system. If they plan, they don't plan within 5-year cycles of how we plan in Africa, where we have a president is worried about 5 years down the line, he is going to be kicked out, so he must, fill his pocket as much as possible. Chinese, they plan in terms of maybe 5 decades, maybe a century or 2 or 3 ahead, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, but I guess this is how China planned. Now, they plan, the BRI is planned for until maybe 2049. It's 2049, yes. Is it?
Yeah, it's like around 2049. Patricia, I think so.
Thereabout.
Yes.
And it is now, when you look at what they are planned in simple terms, I know we can go back to the small items later. If you look at what they are planned, is that they are going to build infrastructure, right? Why do they want to build infrastructure? They want to build infrastructure because that is the only way you can bring up the emerging markets. How do you go to Chad, to Central African Republic with the people there who are sitting on resources like gold? How do you exploit those resources to benefit the people in Central Africa, which is right in the middle of Africa? And there is no road which goes straight from Port of Mombasa all the way to Bangui, the capital city of Central African Republic. We don't have that kind of network. The Chinese already overlaid their imagination upon the African continent, and they know for sure that we have got more than 40% of the world resources here in Africa, right? Now, once they do, they build a road all the way to Bangui. Along the way, anybody who was doing kind of a non-economic mainstream kind of business is going to get on board, because anyone who was having a few mango trees would decide, well, I can plant some more because I can see people passing. I build a little shack there and put it in my products. I will start selling. Soon and very soon, this person will maybe upgrade themselves or skill themselves up to some kind of a local business person. Therefore, creating a situation which was not there before because there was no infrastructure. Now, let's look at the mine which is buried in South Sudan. That mine is not going to be exploited because there is no railway, there is no road, there is no highway over there, right? But when you build that, you have a chance of exploiting that resource and putting it within the global market streams so that the people can be able to benefit out of it. Now, when you look at the railways, the highways, the power grid, the iron and steel, all these things are planned by China to benefit Africa. And when we talk about the benefits which will come to Africa, they are immense and they are immeasurable. In actual fact, maybe I leave this to scholars, because the scholars are the ones who are going to write down about, okay, improved infrastructure, improved prices of resources, stimulated industrialization, technology transfer. All these things are left in the hands of scholars at the moment. But for me, I would like to look at, the knock-on effect, which will come after the BRI is realized in Africa, because we are talking about Africa and the benefits, the impact of it, of BRI on African continent, right? Yeah, that's exactly what we're talking about. So 44 countries out of 54 in Africa have signed on the BRI. Well, that does not mean that because you signed on it, you are going to benefit more than the person who did not sign on it. No, it doesn't. China does not view that, the BRI in that light. You could not have signed for it, but you may benefit more than the one who signed on it, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So as a strategic element on development of Africa, we must embrace BRI because it's something which is going to come, and is going to come with so much power and force that we must be able to be prepared for it. That's why Patricia is talking about meeting these people halfway, right? If you go to the universities, maybe you go to the University of Cape Town, which is the leading university in Africa, Wits University, right? Makerere University, University of Lagos, University of Zimbabwe, University of Nairobi. All these universities, they may not have any academic writings or papers or projects which have done a little bit of even basic study on the Belt and Road Initiative. This for us is a failure on the side of Africa. Yeah. How do we prepare for this Belt and Road Initiative coming to Africa? Because it's definitely coming. We should not be caught unprepared, just as we were caught by the Europeans, or just as we were caught in a way by the technology revolution, which came and unfolded, the internet revolution, let me say that, about 1990. If we lose out on this one, then we will be caught up, between a rock and a very hard place. I can say that for sure. So we must start to prepare in terms of everything, in terms of our knowledge about it, our research on it, people who are ready to look towards east, as President Robert Mugabe used to say, that we turn our back to the west where the sun sets and turn our faces to the east where the sun rises. We must now be prepared to look at China with a different set of eyes and engage them in such a way that, we tell them, look, we have agreement before, and this agreement will not favor us at all, right? Mm-hmm. So we should engage with you in a win-win situation. You coming for raw material, no problem with that. We want infrastructure. And the way they are doing it, they are doing it in different from the Europeans. There has been a lot of noise which has been created around the fact that, when the Chinese come to build a port, or they build a railway, or they build an airport, they own it as collateral, Of course, they should do that. If they are going to put their money on it, they should handle it as collateral until it is able to provide the business. It should provide that profit, right? There's no problem with they building a big airport where there was none before. I don't see any problem with that. In so many years we have been with the Europeans, we didn't get anything much. In actual fact, we are deep up to our necks with loans and debts and wherever, we are being viewed as kind of a menace, as a psychological menace in the conscience of the world. There's a lot of ones which the Europeans have spoken. There are many bad ones spoken by Americans about Africa, but yet we have the resources. All we need is a good partner. And the BRI seems to be something, if we prepare for it very well, we can benefit more than we have been benefiting before. That is my view as far as BRI is concerned. Let's see if Patricia's got something to add to that.
Yeah, those are very good thoughts, I tell you. Patricia, it looks like your connection is good now.
Yes, I really do agree. I agree entirely. We can even take an example of what the US has been holding over China for this BRI as an example, the debt trap diplomacy they've been saying, and like how how you've been saying that the US does hold this overhead. They hold debt, so much much debt over African countries, and then they go around and say that China will bring more debt. Of course, they need to. We need to pay back those loans. We need the infrastructure, and we don't have the financial acumen to pay for this infrastructure. So of course they're meeting us halfway. They're saying we're going to finance these things, but then you will need to pay back. And we can take an example from Ethiopia, the contract they had to build a railway, and they had to go back and do a contract and tell China, you know what, we want to be able to pay this money in the period you've given us. And China accepted and said, you know what, we'll give you, the next 20 years in which to pay that loan. So we'll give you the leeway. So that is what we need. We need the acumen to negotiate, to be able to have that policy space within the agreements we're making with China. To have that power. And that power comes with knowledge. You need to be able to know that your resources can, this infrastructure, it can handle to be able to make the money back to pay back these loans. And you negotiate with China and you say, you know what, we can pay it back. We can pay it back, but within this time. And in the meantime, help us along, help our economy along. And that is what I've been saying. You need the information. You need to be prepared. You need to prepare your institutions. You need to be able to put in place safeguards. And the only way to do that is to do research, to set up your experts, your national experts, to be able to meet these people halfway. You cannot let the table be only occupied by the other party. You need to be halfway. You need to have half the power. You need to have the knowledge. Because in the end, we need these resources. We cannot go without the infrastructure. We need it to boost our economy. The BRI is giving Africa the opportunity to organize its resources and to fuel and to jumpstart its economy, not only with foreign parties, but amongst ourselves. We need to connect. Uganda, like I was saying, where I'm Uganda, we're a landlocked country, but we do have some, natural resources. We have the oil. And China willing to extend, to include Uganda within, the initiative to connect these resources and put them at the port and be able to jumpstart this. But if we do not know what is within the agreements, if we do not know how to handle these things, we won't be able to sustain the initiative. And it will come back to, hurt us in the end. So I feel like it's a good opportunity, but the African continent is not doing as much to meet these people halfway. And we, all the effort is coming from China. They are setting up the, arbitration centers to be able to settle disputes, which never happened with the US, with Europe. We had to take our disputes to Europe, but China is having these arbitration partnerships with African countries, which is unprecedented. There is an arbitration, institute now in Kenya, in South Africa, specifically to deal with dispute resolution on the African continent. It's unprecedented. So it's jumpstarting not just our economy, but it's helping us move along in other aspects, in the legal aspect. So I feel like we should put in the effort. We cannot stop and let them do. Then we won't have anything to complain about when they take over and they are leading the thing. So we need to be able to meet them halfway.
If I may say what I understand both of you to be saying is that from what Kobe said, what you said is that the Europeans have been here and have been here a long time. And for all the loans that we've taken, we don't have infrastructure, we do not have such great airports, we don't have any great roads. People who are landlocked are still landlocked, there's been no connection. And yet for 500 years, and maybe for such a long time, we've received loans maybe as much as China has incurred within. We have the China loans we have within this short time, we have more World Bank, IMF loans. For all this long, and we have no infrastructure, nothing physical to show for it. Our economies are still struggling. And then Patricia, you're also saying, yeah, you actually agree that this is quite an opportunity that we are getting, and it's like an opportunity where you're finding that even a country that is landlocked is able to benefit from this. And until like there's roads and there's a lot of this infrastructure going, our economies cannot pick up. So what China is really doing is it's benefiting, it's going to benefit Africa. But then on the other hand, Africa needs to come on the table. Africa needs to be people who are now are awake and are aware and understand what's going on and know how they can benefit from it. And to to not leave China to be the one making decisions. If you have natural resources, and if you agree with it, 40% of world's resources, that's a lot, because that means Europe, US, and Middle East, all those people combined only get the 60%, Africa's 40%. That's such a huge percentage of the world's resources to have in Africa. And so I think there's the leverage that Africa has, but Africa needs to understand how to use their leverage. Without that, we stand to benefit, but we could also lose. Like there's a chance to. We are at the point where right now you need to wake up and know how to use your resources, how to negotiate, how to use your leverage for you to be able to move forward and to benefit. Yeah.
Yes.
Patricia driven home a very important point, and I cannot agree with that more. And when you look at development in different countries, all the time is from one generation to the next. The next generation must be able to see what the other generation did wrong and try to rectify that. It is either in politics or economics. Everything is just the improvement of what the previous generation did, and then what they did wrong should be rectified. Now, within the BRI context of where Patricia mentions and says that, we need to be ready for the Chinese when they come, because they are real here and they are almost doing everything. It's like somebody builds a house and does everything, including, wash your beddings and strengthen them on your bed. This is not supposed to be the case. We are not as crippled or disabled to a level that we cannot be able to do a little bit for ourselves. But I can tell you that the elephant in the room is the leadership we have in Africa.
Okay.
And this has been what has been mentioned all over. Mm-hmm. Anybody you meet, any African scholar will tell you we have a problem with leadership. Mm-hmm. How do we have a problem with the leadership? Mm-hmm. Simple. We have a problem with leadership because if you look at the systems which are put in place in Africa by the Europeans, the Anglophone, the Francophone, the Lusophone, just all across the board, is that we have this rolling two terms, one term, and you put some dictators in between. So every 5 years there's some elections, which is just like a ritual. It's just a ritual. It doesn't change anything. They say in democracy, but we are living in an illusion, because democracy in Africa is an illusion. We don't get to elect the people we want, who needs to be elected in positions of power. And when we have somebody who who takes over power and is not assured of 10 years down the line, he is going to pocket things within the 5 years mandate, including his ministers and everybody, and then wait for the next election to see if they are going to have another life of 5 years. Now, our leaders in Africa are not really leaders who know about global economics. Let's be honest. If you look at the background of most of our leaders, some of them are teachers. Some of them are coming from, there are so many. Is a hodgepodge. It's a mixed bag of people coming from backgrounds which point nowhere near global economic or understanding of global economics. So once you have that kind of leadership, 54 of them put in one continent, then you will have anybody will say anything just to justify to put something in their own pocket, right? Leadership is the problem we have in Africa. Now, if we have a leadership which looks at legacy development, then we could look at saying that Africa, we have got leadership which looks at the next generation and how they're going to benefit from the infrastructure. If we are not going to be pinned down by contracts which are going to take over our resources, we must be very critical of the leadership which we have now at the moment. But how do we change that? That, I think, is something which we cannot change unless we go full throttle. We just decide that, look, we have this initiative, which is known as maybe just a lobby group, They say we need to have the resources, and this is when you send the resources of the country, it should be mentioned in public. Everybody, be it in Uganda, be it in South Africa, Senegal, Nigeria, they should know what they signed on to. Because now you are talking about, leadership meeting with the Chinese. The details of what has been agreed is not even being mentioned. Nobody says about it. When you talk about the debt trap, the debt trap is a fear-mongering kind of thing, although there is maybe, every cloud has a silver lining. There could be some truth in that, in terms of the Americans and Europeans. They are not very happy. They're always saying, I read some reports in the Independent of the UK, some reports in the New York Times, saying that this is a debt trap, as Patricia mentioned, right? But then how do we get to be fearful of what the Chinese are bringing, which is an investment? And we can see it before that. Let me just not digress, but touch on something. You see, when the Europeans were building infrastructure in Africa, when they left 60 years ago, thereabout, some of them destroyed that infrastructure. And since that time, there has not been much development of infrastructure in Africa, right? People have been increasing, population has mushroomed, but the infrastructure has remained more or less the same way it was 60 years ago. Yeah. Why did they not come in and develop a network in Africa, interconnecting all those railways, highways, power grid, develop iron and steel and so on and so forth? They could not do that because they don't want to draw any kind of Marshall Plan to help out Africa develop. We are a source of raw materials for European industries, right? Now, we have done that. I remember when I was growing up as a kid, I used to have a coffee in the morning, coffee berries, very cold. And then these berries, they are just processed enough for them to be ferried to Europe for the final quality control. And then they mark with the high price and it's sold in the high streets of London, New York, and Paris and everywhere, right? But when the Chinese came, or when they're coming now, in the last maybe 30, 20 years ago, they come with another new deal. They want to give us machinery. When the Chinese came into the picture, the first time I see our coffee factory, people are divided now. They have factories and they are able to process their coffee to a certain level. They can sell it at a higher price and get more than when we are selling this thing through the European system. Now the Chinese are saying, no, we know your problem, Africa. And what we want to do is to integrate you so that we can be able to have, in the next 40, 30, 40, 50 years, we will be able to count you as one of the emerging markets, and then your economies will be developed, and you'll be able to gain more in terms of development, more than what you can do by yourselves, or you can do in partnership with the United States American conundrum, right? Now, as far as the Chinese are coming here, and they are coming with the Belt and Road Initiative, which is a super engine of growth and development. We should be able to worry very much about leadership. We should be able to worry at the moment about lack of, knowledge about what this entails. We should also be able to participate as people with the legal background about the agreement in commerce area. The commercial agreements must be written in such a way that Africa wins and China wins, right? Not that we just shuffle paper and sign, documents with the Chinese just for our own personal experience. No, it shouldn't be like that. We should be able to look and say they are coming. But when they're coming, what should we prepare ourselves to make sure that we do not mess up, just as 60 years of leadership in Africa has sold this country for 2 pence? That's something which we must be able to address.
Patricia, what do you think about the leadership, especially the leadership in Africa and with China?
I I do agree with Mr. Biko. I feel like as if we need to be in that position where we're not leaving it to chance. We're not leaving everything to chance, and also we need to be able to set up our governments, our institutions for success. There've been very many researchers, very many academicians writing papers and analyzing what the BRI could lead to, whether it could be a failure, whether it could be a success. And the answers, the keys are there. We just need to set up our future for success. It might not happen now, but our future generations will benefit from these mechanisms we're putting in place. The decisions we're making now will impact our economy in the future. So we need to be able to set up a strong foundation, and a strong foundation steeped in the right mechanisms, benefiting the right environment, because different countries in Africa have different economic and social and political situations, and integrating them into one strong economic bloc will take time. Like how Mr. Biko said, our presidents, our leadership is very unstable. So we need to be able to know the mechanisms in place, and the Chinese, the way they developed this BRI, it did not come out of thin air. Mm-hmm. It has been in the making. It's an Asian thing. It came from a long time ago, and they realized its potential for the modern times, and they wrote it within their laws. The BRI is within the CPC constitution. Mm-hmm. They are making regulations in order to ensure that there is green energy, at least within the future of this thing. They're making sure that they are bringing the right people on board, they're signing agreements with the UN. They're trying to see that it's steeped within international law, within the rule of law, that there's rule of law govern the way these things are going. They're making sure that there's the right arbitration systems and there's the right laws. If there's a law that should be in dispute, there's conflict of law is not there. So they're putting in place these mechanisms, and they're studying the way they can at least manage their own risks. They can cover their own tracks. Yeah. Africa should be doing this. Yeah. We should be studying our gaps, where we lack, where we have patches to fix in. Where we say that Kenya's laws, Kenya's border security, or the tariffs or the customs procedures are much better than Uganda's, or Congo, where you are getting the resources from to reach the coast where they'll be ferried off. We need to see that these customs proceedings are at least at a level where they can work. And the only way we can do that is to work together, to realize that we need to remove these barriers. We need to set up a foundation on which we can develop these things. So I think we should start from there. We should recognize the weak links, because supply chain is only as strong as its weak links. So we need to patch up those things, to see where we have difficulties and to approach each other within ourselves, because this is it's a tool we can use to bolster our own African. We can use it to patch up what, like what Mr. Biko said, what the Europeans did, what the irregularities they left, the patches they left behind, because they left us divided. They did leave us divided. That's so true. We need to come back together, to patch ourselves even without the Chinese, just Africa, just within Africa. By the time we can regularize, we can have a regular mechanism, border, laws or mechanisms or institutions within the regional institutions themselves. That's halfway. That small step can remove what has been, holding us back. Just patching up the gaps. I think we can do so much just that. So we need to come on board and see what we're lacking within our mechanisms, our own institutions, our own mechanisms, set up standards, set up a policy space, set up a place where we can have the power to negotiate at an equal ground with China. So we need that, I think.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay, Patricia, from what you've said, I have two follow-up questions. One, you've lived in China, you've studied in China, and you see what China are doing. Like the Belt and Road Initiative comes from the ancient Silk Road. I mean, that Silk Road was what in the what century? Like it was really like it's a very ancient thing. Like that they have taken up and they've modeled the BRI on the Silk Road. But what I want to ask you is China our friend as Africa? Is there's all these benefits that we are that looks like we are getting, and they seem to be very focused on the effects they are likely to have on Africa is undeniably going to be positive, yeah, especially on the infrastructure that they leave behind and the procedure, like what Kobe is saying about like the coffee farmers are now like their factories are getting better. My question is what China doing like out of our heart to help Africa? And they're saying like this is another developing person. We've seen what we've gone through ourselves and we want to help Africa, or as the West is saying that China is just out to take advantage of Africa. That's the first point I'd like you to maybe speak about. And then also the second point is, which I think is very important, which you could also even for Kobe to even comment on, is that China, the BRI, they're taking it so seriously that they have the China Arbitration Center in Johannesburg working, in Kenya working. They already have committees set up on like the tax disputes, the likely tax disputes that are likely to come out of the BRI. They already have an administrative forum where they're discussing about the potential tax problems and how to solve them. I mean, China is thinking so much ahead of this. Africa doesn't seem, unless these discussions are going on somewhere where we are not aware, it doesn't look like Africa has got through. We might have disputes in this. Tax might be a problem in this. Our economies we might have to lose out of tax or maybe gain tax from this. Where in Africa, what do you think is holding back doing simple things as passing legislation? What's the problem? So if you could speak about those two things, like really is China our friend and these institutions in Africa, what's the problem? If you can take a guess at it.
I feel like as if we cannot really pinpoint, you cannot really tell the intention. You know, you cannot really know what's going on inside their, inside the heads of these people who are doing this. You cannot really tell if they're friendly but what we do know is that at least they're bringing it here. It is not something that is being made, you can see the results happening here. You can see the infrastructure being set up. You can see them, signing scholarships with, to give scholarships to African students to go and study their culture, to give them skills. You can see these things. So from those actions, you can tell that at least to a certain point, even they will benefit from it a lot, at least they're setting it up in a way that you can see that they want a win-win situation. We will get something, but you will also get something in return. Okay. And I feel like also because when I was studying in China, it was because of a government scholarship. The way I came across this opportunity, I was studying the Chinese language at an institute here in Uganda, and the professor who was leading the institute offered me the opportunity to go to China and study within their environment. And when I reached there, I realized that you are something that they want information about. They have not seen you before. You are strange to them, but they want to learn what is strange about you, what they can offer you and what you can give them. So you find yourself in this situation where you're going around to all these conferences and you are a teacher. You're teaching them. They might be ignorant about you. They might say that your skin is strange or your hair, why is it like that? But it's questions about trying to understand, trying to know what you are, what makes you tick. And the university I was studying at is specialized in doing African research. So I found myself most times going through the records they have about Uganda and saying this is wrong. But when I say this is wrong, they won't say that no, it's what someone wrote, so it's correct. They'll say what is wrong. Tell us what is wrong, and then we'll fix it, We'll put it there. So you find yourself in this situation where you're teaching these people because they are ignorant about you, but they're willing to learn about you. They want to see how they can connect with you. And that I think is very important in a business situation. You need to understand the other person, which is lacking for us Africans. We're not going forward to learn about the Chinese. When you are with them.
Hi. Okay.
Seems Patricia cut. Is she cut? Yeah, right?
Yeah, looks like she's. I was afraid it's my. I thought it was my end.
She froze. She got frozen again.
Yeah.
It's about understanding the other person's culture. I feel like it's about understanding where the other person is, why they do what they do, and why you do what you do. Why do we have our culture like this? When they come and build a dam in a cultural site, it's because they're ignorant. It's not because they're trying to take away that culture. Because our government lacked in telling them that this was important. They just sold our land to them. But they are willing to learn about these things. They were shocked about some of the cultural things I told them that are related to land laws here. That you have to respect the culture of the place you're going into, and they will forward that to their government and say, you know what? You need to understand the people you're dealing with. And they're willing to learn that. So I feel like at that level, at least at that level, I wouldn't say maybe, I don't know, the intentions are friendly, but at least at that level, I can respect them for that. I can say that at least you are at a level where you can understand each other. And another point to make is that they, at one point, their economy as a country, they were so poor. They were worse off than we are, right now. But they managed to build themselves up in such a short time. Between 1949, when the government became, it stopped being the Republic of China and became the PRC, it built itself up from poverty in such a short time. And in their policy and in what they say when they are, they're bringing this thing to us is we want to be able to give an example, to set an example for Africa that we were where you are, and it's possible to get away from that place. It's possible if you're willing to put in the effort. It's possible to build yourself up, to bring your people out of, poverty. But of course, it's our leadership that's letting us down. So I hope that answers one of your questions. Wow, and then that's for the second one, which would also be answered by the first one. It's us. It's just the African continent. And what you can also take out from that is that China as a country is a big country. Their population can fit within the entire China. I mean, the entire Africa. They are, it's one country. So they are able to plan for that, all those people under one leadership. But in Africa, we're divided. Every single country is trying to have its own development goals, it's at different places. It has different economic acumen. It has different political situations. So we are where we are because we are divided. Everyone has a different agenda. So we've tried to bring together this thing under the AU, but it's kind of failing. It's because every single country on the African continent has a different legal system. It has a different political agenda. It has a different economic system. It's following a different development model. We have different needs. So if we can, like how I was saying, if we can come to a table and negotiate our differences and say, this is what is holding us back. These are the gaps we have as a continent, and to remove those weaklings, those gaps, and to be able to at least give some leeway to be able to let in this development, then we win. I feel like we win. We need to, to remove our differences first. Otherwise, China will drive a wedge in those weaknesses, and it will be used as a tool against us by the West. They'll use it against us and the possibilities we could have with having development with China. So we need to band together as African countries. We need to be able to be on board as African countries without outside interference. We need to know that these are our resources, these are our people, this is where we lack, this is where we are strong. We are the fastest growing economy on the globe. So much potential on the continent, and we need to use that to our advantage. What is just letting us down is our differences. So I feel like that should answer, maybe my answer to your questions.
Okay. Kobe, do you have something? You look like you're agreeing with almost everything Patricia was saying. You're
I agree. I totally agree. I'm amazed by this kind of knowledge we got in Africa, but then when it comes to seeing what actually takes place, people with knowledge are left way much behind, because those people who don't have knowledge, they want to be staying at the front, because fighting for the leadership in Africa is about how loud you can shout, not how much knowledge you got. Now, I agree with Patricia in absolute. One of the things I wanted to add what she said about, you asked a question about China being a friend of Africa. And she avoided a direct answer for obvious reasons, because China itself has got a communist, entrenchment. And it has got a capitalistic mind when it's doing business. So you really cannot place things here or there. You have to be very careful how you proceed. Because one of the things in the global arena is that a capitalistic mentality, it tends to take everything and give back nothing. You understand? So we have to be extremely careful not to be the ones who have lost everything, because we were just being jargoned about, being told that this BRI is essentially meant to develop you and bring you to the fold of the global economy. And then we forget that there are safeguards which must be followed, in terms of ourselves having an agreement where we protect ourselves and our posterity, our future. Without that, then of course we could end up being kind of like, slaves of the Chinese in the 21st century going forward. And we need to avoid that, because we've been fighting the Europeans for all that time. They gave us political power, and then they took over the economic power. Now we continually, struggling to regain the economic power which we deserve, so that we can develop ourselves. And I think Patricia mentioned about that and said, look, if it is the economic part of ourselves, we must sit down, all of us, as leaders of Africa countries, and understand one thing. This is our differences. Once we pinpoint the differences, it will be easy then to understand that these are our differences, and look at the similarities, especially if they're pointed towards economic development, because everyone wants to develop, right? It does not mean because you have gold and the other people don't have nothing that you say, no, those ones we cannot integrate with them because they will, weigh us down. No. They are also a market, and they could provide service. They could build service, because now, look at Kigali, Rwanda. I think it's kind of a service center, kind of, because they don't have so much resources, but they are coming, and they're developing. And countries where there's so much resources, mining, like Nigeria, it's really messed up with these oil resources. So we must understand one thing: we must reason together, right? We must reason together, or perish. As Martin Luther King said, we must reason together as brothers, or perish together as fools. That's what Martin Luther. This also, applies to our situation in Africa. Unless we are able to, because I was thinking when Patricia was talking about, does the African Union, of which African Union is born out of the countries, this African Union has been compromised by the Europeans. In any case, it's just a gentleman's club. Right? They show up, they get the cocktails going, talk this, but then it gets done in actual fact. So is there any, I don't know, Patricia, do you know any of a committee focusing on BRI based in Ethiopia and Addis Ababa, where AU has its headquarters, which it may be comprises of one gentleman from every country, to look at how BRI has got the 44 countries which signed on BRI in Africa, right? They should have a representative, each of them, and form a committee, sit down and be able to look at BRI and how it's coming into Africa. That's a good starting point. But I guess we are not even organized at that basic level, so that we can be able to receive this investment, which is going to turn the world upside down for the better, if I can put it that way. Because the BRI is not, it dwarfs. I mean, it's so immense. Any other foreign direct investment is dwarfed by by the BRI. The BRI is going to transform Africa in a way in which no one has ever imagined, nobody has ever foreseen. And it is going to be what they say it is. Africa then stands at the point where it's going to benefit far much more than it has ever benefited for the last 500 years of, our interaction with the Europeans. So it's essentially important for us to understand that we put our differences aside, we bring a committee, we start, getting, to put our house in order so that we can receive this BRI. That's what I wanted to say about. But China, definitely, as a posturing of a friend. But we may not know, so if it's a friend in absolute sense, until we interact with them for a little bit while and see where this goes. But we must avoid being slaves or being colonized by another entity. As long as we've been with these Europeans, we know what it takes to be colonized. Yeah. So I pray that we can put our house in order. Yeah. Okay. That's my deal.
Okay. Patricia, you look like you had a comment to make, especially on what Kobe was asking about a committee dealing with BRI. So I'll let you respond to that. But something to note is that for myself, the most in-depth discussion I had about BRI was when I was doing my master's last year at the University of Cape Town. And you can applaud the University of Cape Town because they're trying to introduce China-Africa relations as a whole. And how they are structuring it, they're trying to equip Africans to really be aware what is going on in Africa and China. And so they offer it, and they're offering it at the master's level where they want you to sit down and actually, it's almost like a seminar. You sit down and you really think through where is your country at, what are they doing with China, and then every person from each different African country has an opportunity to investigate, literally just look in and see what is going on with China. And then the best thing that they tell you, now you must go and share this information with your country. And which I found to be quite a different way. It's really not just a class that you go through and you're taught and you have book knowledge. They actually equip you and they want to equip you to go and actually do something the knowledge. But anyway, and they're trying to also maybe, but in any case, find there's a Confucius Institute, the China Cultural Center and English Center. There's one at almost every university in Africa. In Tanzania, there's a Confucius Institute, which is like the
everywhere,
Africa,
everywhere.
And everywhere there's a Confucius Institute. Yet in Africa, at the University of Lagos, for instance, I'm not sure they teach any China-Africa related kind of course. But you see, there's a very hands-free way that Africa deals with these things, And yet you hear like China, they are willing to learn. They are willing, like what you're saying, that they're willing to learn about Africa. But yet Africa, we're almost like carefree on what's going to happen at this. And what Kobe you're saying is very important because BRI is going to have an impact whether we like it or not, and we are better be ready for it. But this is information and knowledge that is not people are really not keen about it. But really, this is the future, and especially I think we will in the next discussion we can speak about especially the digital Silk Road because China, along with the belt, with the infrastructure, the physical infrastructure, they are now looking to build the digital Silk Road. Like they're trying to have also digital infrastructures along with this BRI process, which means that this is going to affect the fourth industrial revolution. It's going to affect so much of Africa and the digital side. It's going to affect it, but we are still very, I don't know, we don't seem to understand what's happening. Yeah. So, Patricia, if you have any comments, I see for some reason I think Kobe dropped off the call. But if you have if you could answer the question that has been asked on the chat, and the question is, could someone explain the current countries? Explain current countries that are already in the initiative, and in which continents, and are they in several continents? Yeah, but yes, they are in several continents, not just in Africa. Europe is in, except the US, but I think South America is in it. But Patricia, you could answer that.
Yes, I think you had already introduced the BRI, so I'll just have to say that it does encompass most of the continents, countries, at least within the developing world. So the intention of the Silk Road was to bring back to life those trade routes, those ancient trade routes that connected China to different points on the globe that were very prominent during trade in the ancient times, which was to get resources from Africa and from Asia and to put them within the market in Europe. So they would collect the spices and the gold and the slaves or the labor from Africa via the Indian Ocean and then up towards China and towards the Southern Asia, and all these routes collected all these goods, all this trade and brought it along those routes, and eventually it would end up in Europe where there was consumption, where there was a market for it. So China realized that it could revive this in the modern sense, where it had this money, these resources, but it needed the raw material and the labor and the natural resources from Africa. So it decided that, why don't we just rebuild these routes within the modern setting, put up railways to transport these goods, put up the necessary energy to run the industries that come with producing or, collecting all this material and bring it within these ancient routes that worked so well during that time. And eventually, because there's market within Europe, and eventually they would end up in Europe. So, and the genius of this plan, at this point, we need the infrastructure. That is what is holding us up. We just need the routes. And in order to do this, we need to set up the routes. We need to be able to empower our ports and to revitalize our transportation system and to move these factors of and to be able to kickstart, to bring, our economy, the global economy needed something new, it needed an innovation. So that is why China is leaving it inclusive. So whichever country wants to join can join. There's no limit to whichever country can join. And at the moment, a lot of countries, it has signed memorandums of understanding with different countries to participate in, the BRI. Though what I would say my problem still is that it is not as institutionalized as I would have liked it to be. They've signed the memorandum. You don't see it you don't see it in policy. You do not see how it's being implemented. Really, you do see the Chinese everywhere trying to build all these things, but you don't see the institutions.
Yeah.
In this country, living up. So that is what I would say.
Yeah, and especially with you're not sure even when the MOU was signed. Likewise, the MOU that was signed between Uganda and China, for instance. Like, where are these documents? Who has been signing them? Where is there like like almost what you're calling an institution? Like the same way there's a judicial system, and like we can see the China Africa Joint Arbitration Center.
Exactly.
We know where it's based, but where are these?
Yes.
Where's the BRI office based? We see where's the BRI office based? Where can I, if I wanted to get more information on the BRI impact that's having on Kenya, where would I go and look? But with like the Joint Arbitration Center, I know the Joint Arbitration Center is in Johannesburg. I know it's in Nairobi. I know. So you know these things, but the BRI itself, the core of it, you don't know it. It's very fluid. It's very fluid. That's the problem. And then the other thing that we actually even highlighted when I was studying about this China Africa is that what China also is happening is that even Africa, which I think is Africa to blame as well, because China comes and does something like, they helped Kenya come up with a software to manage the wildlife immigration and monitor such things for Kenya Wildlife Service. So they did something with for Kenya on that. And then China put that down and said this is part of the BRI. And then Kenya thought, no, that's not part of the BRI. We didn't know that it was part of the BRI. But then China said, no, it was part of the BRI. But you see, that's the problem, because right now you're just seeing it put somewhere up and you're told this is part of the BRI. You're like, no, for us on our side, we thought it was just like we are buying, you're helping us with our platform, building our online platform. But for China, it's like we don't know what. I think even the leaders in African countries themselves do not know like what's going on, and they're not aware. So China is the one that writes down one day and tells you have done 50 projects according to what we agreed at FOCAC, the Forum for Africa China Cooperation. So they say like we agreed on this and we delivered. And then Africa is like, where did you deliver? And then that day that's when we talk that we helped you come up with an online platform to monitor the wildlife in Kenya, and it's part of BRI, and you're not aware. So I think there's quite a lot. There's quite a lot of an attitude in Africa that needs to change. And I think the sooner that most Africans actually, like most people you speak to from Africa, they know they dislike Chinese people. That's a common thing across Africa. Most people tell you like we dislike Chinese people, but they can't actually put up their finger on it and say this is why we dislike Chinese people, which I think now is when people should start thinking like critically on what it is that's going on and ask actual questions without the emotion, without the hatred, without saying that people eat dogs. That's the reason you don't like them. But actually ask the questions. And everyone has dropped off the call. Is there anyone privy of the terms in place as to the use of the routes when constructed? Cosma. Of the terms in place as to the use of the routes when constructed. So that's the problem. We don't know most of these terms, it's in an MOU that's somewhere where we don't know where the MOU is, and China always has the upper hand in deciding on most of these things. And I don't think it's because China wants to decide. I think it's because Africa is not asking. I don't think Congo, for instance, is asking why China are the ones solely mining their mines and exporting, and how that money is being used. And what China is doing in Congo, they're taking they're taking like the copper, and they're building a road for them. No one seems to like ask those questions. So yeah, so or the airport, or like in Ethiopia, like the houses they constructed. Yeah, Patricia, you dropped
Hello?
off. Hi.
Yes, I think the internet
Yeah,
connection is getting
I
worse.
yeah, I think we are done anyway. I think I was going to say, I was trying to answer the last question on the chat, and I think I've answered it, hopefully. But I think we can just, Patricia, we should have another discussion. Let's have another discussion on this, especially because I don't think we've covered as much. We have barely touched the surface.
Exactly. That's the point. There's so much to discuss.
There's so much. There's so much that to discuss on China, Africa. It could be a discussion every day. I mean, every month you have a talk on China, Africa. But Patricia, what I'm really hoping to do is and what I was trying to say is that if you ask any person from an African country, they all agree they hate Chinese people, and it's very emotional. Like even, I mean, like you speak to anyone, actually to anyone from Zim to anywhere to Namibia, they say like Chinese people have come and they've taken over like Zim markets. Like Chinese people are the ones who are selling in the very local market, in the small market. But you see, like what you're saying is that what you're saying is that Chinese people, they probably don't understand what problem we have with them. And then the other thing is also the day we stop responding emotionally and say we hate Chinese people because they eat dogs, and instead ask questions, ask where is the MOU that the government has signed? We want to investigate it. The day we start using reason to go against what we don't like about China, that's the day we start winning. Otherwise, hating them and having a feeling against them doesn't solve our problems as Africa. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Because they're here to stay. I feel like unless there's some radical change in the way the world is going to be run, they're here to stay. They're going to be the superpower in the near future. So we have to live with them, really. So you need to understand the people you're dealing with. You need to go away from the negative perspective and start asking questions, the real questions, the significant questions.
Yeah. So anyway, Patricia, I hope we can do this more. And even if it's to just like get a few people thinking about these things, even if it's, to get a few people from a few African countries actually starting to think in their minds, like to just think through it and ask these questions, it might help, even if it's not immediately, but, to like share this information and just say, you need to focus, turn away from looking at Chinese food and start looking at what actually will impact you as a country,
Yes, exactly.
But I think there's a long way to go, but
It is.
yeah, but I don't think China is going anywhere. To be honest, I don't think China is going anywhere. Even the US cannot take China out of the picture. No one is going to put China down. They are up, going, and no one can stop them. And it's time we accepted that and
Yes,
admit them intellectually at the same level.
exactly.
Cool. Patricia, we will have this. I will chat to you. We agree on how often we can like have these conversations.
Yeah.
This is actually like the list. Thank you so much. The reception cut off. That is a great. Okay, he left. Kobe left. But I think, in fact, you can even look at the turnout for these discussions when you're having discussions on China and Africa. People are not really as concerned. on the day that we are
Yes.
discussing a topic like Africa Free Continental Trade Area, that day there's such a huge turnout. This event, people,
Yes.
but China Africa discussions, people are like, yeah, whatever, what is it about, But I hope like we can have more and more audience on it. Yeah.
Yes. And it's up to us to start the conversation. It is up to us. We cannot let China do the talking. We need to do the talking here as Africans. So we need to put in the work.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much. I will share the
Thank you.
yeah, I'll share the recording. We normally upload it on YouTube and try share it around, like to just share the information but then we are trying also to have a more ongoing conversation on this thing. So now we've just settled on a few things that we want to focus on as discussions, and China Africa is one of them. Just have an ongoing discussion, and yeah. Anyway, I'll chat to you a bit more so that we know like how to go about it and see what more we can do.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It was such a great discussion. Thank you so much for having.
Not a problem, Patricia. It was great to have you as well. And